Raul, no worries about that question. You can do the cartoons on any page. Doesn't have to be, you don't have to skip pages, okay? All right, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. We got a spread. A spread means two pages that are facing each other. So when you open it up, it's like a poster, okay? And here we go. Let's go with figure proportions. Right? I'm not really designing my letters too well or much because I want to move on, but you guys can make yours look nicer and design them a little later, right? But you're going to have a title, figure proportions. On the right side, we're going to draw a whole person as a glorified stick figure, basically. And on the left side, we're going to do some other little exercises to help as we go back and forth, okay? So if you rather switch it because you're left-handed, that's fine. That's okay, right? But one page is for noodling and doodling, and one page is for the actual notes and the actual body, okay? Now, here's what I want you to do first. Take your viewfinder, okay, and make one measurement. I'm going to make this, I'm going to use this side of it right now, like one joint of my finger and estimate that distance. And this is going to represent one head, all right? When we do the actual, when we draw the face, we go one eye, all right? So make, like, this is about an inch. It doesn't matter how big it is. I just want it to be big enough to, so we have a nice big design on this side. I mean, a big, we use the full space of the page for the figure over here. So don't make it too small. Make it, you know, like an inch long or something like that, right there. All right. And to start with, draw a really light line down the middle. Our viewfinder can become like a ruler. You see that okay? And then make a marking at the top. Okay, and this imaginary line that I just made is called the major axis. And I'm writing really small, but here you go. Major axis. And pull back a little bit now. All right, and that head length right here, all right, all I want to do now is mark that off with little lines here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and a half. Phew, it just barely made it. You need to have 7 equal units, 7.5 equal units, or, all right? So there are 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces plus a half. Okay. 7.5 heads. Now, if it didn't fit, then erase it quickly and make the head length a little shorter. All right, I probably should have started a little higher because I'm kind of cramped down here, but it did fit barely. Okay, now once you have that, can you type an X in the chat so I know I can go to the next step? 1, 2, 3, 4. Good, good, good. And once you got the line and the 7 and a half segments, and we're good. We can keep going. Right on Lionel, Abraham, Jocelyn. How you doing out there, Kevin, Juliana? Gloria. Oh, you got the first one. Okay, never mind. You got it. Good, good. Okay, now, before we actually draw the stick figure, the glorified stick figure over here, we're going to pump them up a little bit. Let's go to the left side where we do like some features and some details and some noodling and doodling, I like to call it, okay? We're going to draw a head, right? So we practice in this little space right there, one head length, right? But let's zoom in. I want to show you a quick thing about the head, all right? And again, if you guys have some experience with this is going to be pretty elementary, but it never hurts to practice some of these basics, okay? A head is not round. When most people draw the head, they usually go like too round, then they make the eyes too high up, they make too small nose, they go like this. This is like a typical face. Then they go like this for the eyes. Then they make the hair, right? And then they make this little neck that could never hold up that head, right? So that's a cool cartoon, but that's not what we're going for, okay? We're going for more accurate. A head is usually, if you start with a circle and then add a jawbone, kind of tapers down like that, okay? And it becomes more like an egg. And so that's one way to practice the head shape, okay? I'll do it again, a circle, and then an oval or a jawbone. You could make it more squarish if you wanted, and then round it, right? And the things we look for in drawing a head to make it more like an egg is, if you remember this from the first week, when we did simple shapes, if you put the axis lines, a major axis and a minor axis, there's different arc in each side. So it's not quite an ellipse. If you went, yes, you do draw this, Manuel. Do this on the left side, and then we're going to draw the actual figure on the right, okay? So it's like taking notes over here on the left side. So try a couple different heads. Get that oval shape that's more like an egg, really, where the top is a little more bulbous, a little bigger than the jaw, just a little bit. These are all frontal view, okay? And if you have these, then you're like a little bit ahead for the portrait tomorrow, all right? So we want to draw this shape over here on the right side now. Once you've practiced a couple of them, okay, over here, try to draw a head. Make it fit in there and estimate the head, right? Could be a little wider if I wanted. Some people's heads are slightly more round, a little flatter on top, but get it pretty egg-like right there, okay? Now, when I used to go to parties, you guys remember what those are before the pandemic? A party is a grouping of people usually in a room or a warehouse with music playing and food and drink and so on. Okay, so when people go, "What do you do, Yanowski? How do you make a living?" When I meet somebody, I go, "Oh, I'm an art teacher," and then they immediately say, "I can't draw. I can barely draw a stick figure." And I would say to them, and that's a weird thing. It's like they're confessing something to me. It's like, what am I supposed to do about it, right? But what you should know is, if you can draw a stick figure, then you're basically halfway there. You just got to keep adding sticks, right? So this is how most people draw a stick figure. Let's do a little doodle over here on the left side. And this will kind of explain where we're going with this. All right. If you draw a head, this is a really little drawing. All right. You have a head. Most people go like this. They have a body and then legs and then some arms, right? That might be like one way people draw a stick figure. And the reality is we actually are going to do the same thing on the right side, but we're going to keep adding sticks. This is what I mean. All right. If I extend this arm out a little bit, this becomes like shoulders, right? This can become like the pelvis, and then just go again. This distance like one head, and then another part of the arm, one head. So you got one head, one head, one head. And then a hand, which is not quite a head, but pretty big. Then you do another head length, a stick that's the length of the head, right there. And another one, and a hand. And then the legs, one head, two heads, one, and then a half fish, and then a foot, sticks. So this is like two heads to the knee, down, and then another foot. All right, now we have more correct proportions. Stick figure. All right, if you didn't quite follow that, because I know I went kind of fast, right? If you take this unit right here, one head, you have it here, out to, you have it here, you have it here, and almost there's 3/4 of a head. One head, another head. Oh, that's too far. Hands are a little less than a head, 3/4 of a head. This right here is like 4 heads. Okay, so there's a little preview. But that was really fast, and that's not going to take you all the way to where you need to go with figures and drawing cartoons too. But when you look at a person as a stick figure, here's one way to do it. And it'll help you guys draw cartoons or realistic people more accurately, doing different poses, that cartoons or real people might do. All right, so that's simply where we're going, and we're going to do it now a little more slowly and bigger on the right. Okay, now the question is, what do you do next after you got the head up here? How do you add the rest? All right, we're going to just piece it together going downwards, kind of like we did with the stick figure over here. Are you ready? Y'all with me still? Here we go. Here is the head, and if I drew a line right through the middle, this is where the eyes would be, right? So you got a head and then a half a head. And if you feel from if you're sitting up straight, I don't know if you guys can see my camera of me right now, but the distance from the bottom of your chin to right here where your ribs come together, your rib cage, right? That distance right there is almost exactly the same as from your eyes to your chin. Like that. So what I'm saying is that this distance is about the same as from your chin to the top of your ribs. That little like part where the rib cage is, little like soft spot right there. If somebody hit you there, you choke, right? So put a tiny little mark right there. I'll make it a little bigger so you can see. And then go out one head, this distance. And that's why we have the card, because I could actually just measure it out like that, one head out if I want to. All right, so you can do this by estimating or using the card. I recommend for beginners, use the card. If you're good at seeing proportions and seeing that this distance is the same as this distance, the head, then good. All right. And this point represents like the outer edge of the shoulder, not like where the joint is, but kind of the outer edge. All right. So the joint of the shoulder bone might be like right there, might be more closer to there. All right. And go out again, one head. Okay. So we got this midline and then this axis line going up for the shoulders. That's about as far as the shoulders will go. All right, now here's a fun thing. If you're sitting in your chair, sit up straight and then put your elbows in to your ribs like I'm doing in my, I don't know if you guys can see me too well. I'm gonna move back a little bit. But elbows in, and notice if I take one hand and put it under the elbow of my other arm, so I'm taking my left hand, putting it under my right elbow, and I notice that my elbow reaches down when my shoulders are relaxed but straight. My elbow runs right into the bottom of my ribs, okay? And what I want to point out, if you look at the little stick figure on the left side, is that your elbow when you bring it in, lines up with the ribs, and then you have these ribs in here, right? And if we zoom in on that, let's try, everybody go to the exercise side now. We're on the left side, or for left-handers, the right side. Okay, so this is the noodling and doodling area. See this shape here? This is kind of like a simplification of the upper body, a big trapezoid like that. Oh, let me zoom in. A big trapezoid. But another way to do it is to notice that the ribs are kind of like you got ribs. They kind of go like this. It's like two beans that are stuck together, right? Your ribs come up in the front. They stick out, they flare out. Another way to draw that is like that, but it's an exaggeration, right? Go inside here. So your ribs stick out right there and there. Right? And they kind of come in. You got this little like cage. Okay, another way to draw this. So you got this shape. You got this shape. You could also try like just a simple cylinder like that. Right, there's lots of different ways to draw the upper body simply right there. Okay, and what I want us to do is this. All right, first draw the arm, the upper arm from the shoulder joint. Oh, I'm gonna move back here. From the shoulder joint to the elbow is a little more than one head. Okay, because if you think about it, the bone of your bicep, right, from like the joint to the joint, from your shoulder to your elbow, is one head plus a little more. All right, so I'm going to take my one head and draw. How about this? We'll draw big joints like this, like a big dot. Then draw one head. Okay, and then a joint. So it's like a barbell. So the total length, see the bone right here in the middle is one head, but then you got the joints added on that. We swing that in. Right? The ribs will be up to there. And this here is like one head plus a little more, right? And I'm going to draw like I just did, like a kind of like a shield or two beans coming together. There's the rib cage. So the elbow would come in. If I was to swing it in, it would touch the bottom of the ribs right there. All right, and try it on both sides. Big joint for the shoulder. Joints are going to be symbolized by like this dark dot. One head, and then another joint. And that joint will kind of feed right in. You don't need to make them too dark. You might need to like adjust it. Okay, so here, as you do that, I'm going to do one more thing with my axis lines. So we got the top of the head. I'm going to extend these lines a little bit so you can see something a little easier. All right, if you look here, you got 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh no. It's easy to get lost when we draw so many lines, but one head, two heads, three heads, 4. Ha ha ha, 4 heads. The count. All right, from the top of your head down to the bottom of the fourth head, that's your crotch, right? This is where your legs meet. That's all I'm going to say about that right there. That's the midpoint right there. Okay, there you go. Now, if you feel this is better to do standing up, and I don't know how long you've been at the computer today, but if you stand up straight, I don't know what you can see, but feel for your hip bone right here, okay? The top of your pelvis, right, is your hip bone. And there's a name for that we're going to write down in a moment. Okay, and let's go to our doodling. We're going to draw a shape in here to represent the pelvis, right? The bone or collection of bones, really, that holds all our guts and our intestines and bladder and everything else, right? Right? We're going to draw this in different ways, and I'll show you ways to think about what the pelvis is. The pelvis is like a bucket, right? This in here. Right here, I did it like an upside down home plate, but you could do it as like a bucket too. Little cylinder. Here's another way. And it tapers in a little bit. So it's kind of like a cup. And there's all your guts in there. Okay. Another way to think about it, though, your hip bones are not quite that shape, right, of the bucket. It's actually a little more like this. Goes up, comes in, and then goes up. It's kind of like it looks kind of like a saddle in a way, right? So your hip, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the hip bone is right here. Sticks up like that. And that's called, write this down, okay? The edge of the bucket, that your hips, right? Where should I write this? Hip is the iliac crest. Oh. Crest. It's that part right there. And this is kind of like a quick anatomy lesson, because when you draw human beings, you're going to want to know where the iliac crest is when they're standing. So on this person, they're pretty even because they're standing straight. They're right there. Oh, I put it here. There's the iliac crest. Something that this is a little advanced knowledge, but it's going to help you guys a lot if you let that sink in. The iliac crest is your hip bone, right? Whereas the whole structure here, right, is your pelvis. The hip bone is a part of the pelvis. That word I'm saying is pelvis, is the bucket. Okay, let's draw one over here now on the larger guy or gal. So far, it's just a collection of lines. It doesn't have a sex or gender yet. Okay. So the distance from the ribs to that bone right here is half a head. From the bottom of the ribs to the top of the pelvic bone is about a half a head. So leave some space. There's like this soft zone between your ribs and your hips. If you measure that out, right, it's about half a head, maybe a little less. Right? So draw a bucket right there and flare it out at the top just a tiny bit, like that. This is another way to draw it, kind of like a U. Or I could go around like a bucket. Okay, so the iliac crest. All right, so we have the upper half of the body, but not the entire arm, right? Y'all with me still? You doing okay? You can type an X or a Y or any letter you want into the chat and let me know you're with me still. Or a 7. Okay, now, believe it or not, right around the crotch is where things get complicated. No pun or joke intended there, but all right, here we go. The length of the legs, all right, one way to simplify the whole body is that we could think of it as 8 heads, but then you shrink it down a tiny bit for more realistic proportions. In other words, if you draw a person that's 8 heads tall, it would go down off the page here a little bit. and they might look a little taller, more like a model or an avatar or something like that, extra elongated, right? But the average human beings, 7.5 heads. So that's why we drew that there. What happens is the leg is like 4 heads, but it's connected above the middle, right? So let's draw a joint right here. Zoom in slightly for you guys, right? And another one, because your leg joins in above your crotch, if you notice, right? A little bit above. Big ball and socket right in there. And the legs go down to almost a full 2 heads, but remember you're starting above this line. So you go 1 head's right there, and then 2. So right above this line. Draw a joint. And if you make this line a little curved, it's kind of accurate because the femur bone, the big bone right there, is slightly curved too. It's the hardest bone to break in the body. And most people, my brother's an athletic trainer. He's seen all kinds of injuries. People don't break it by hitting it this way, like getting tackled this way won't break it. It's when you land really hard going this way that people break their femur. Just so you know, a little fun tip. All right. Now from there, we got to get to the ground, and then we're going to put the arms back on. All right. So from here, you go almost all the way down. And if you think about it, your ankles are a couple inches above the ground. So we put a joint there for the ankles. Okay, a little less than half a head. And then the feet, all right? We're going to talk about feet and hands a little more on the left side. Let's see that now, okay? Over here. Okay, a foot and a hand are often very complicated. In my advanced art class, there's kids who want to know how to draw hands better, especially when they translate it to cartoons. And they're tricky. Okay, we're going to talk about hands first and then feet. And I'm not going to put my feet on the table, but here we go. All right, a hand on the back side of it, here, let me get the camera angle a little more correct. If you look at a hand, okay, and you drew a line right through the middle where these joints are, the distance from here to here versus here to where your wrist is pretty similar. That distance and that distance are almost the same, so where the wrist bends. Okay, if you turn it over, it's a little different. Like the palm looks bigger than the fingers. It's a weird observation, right? See that distance? Then turn it over. It's because the angle of where your joint is here versus your bones there. See the difference? The top of your joint here is back this way, and the bottom of your finger is more forward that way. Okay? So I'm telling you that because when you draw the hand from the back side or the front side, it's a slightly different midpoint, right? But if we look at the hand here, you could trace it even. It's simply like this shape. Let's talk about hands for a moment over here. Okay, one way to draw the hands is draw a midline, and you got your fingers, which goes from wide to narrow, and then the palm. Right? Now, because this line's in the middle, it's more like the back of the hand. All right? And then I can look at where the thumb is, how it goes above the middle. Whoop, wrong way. How wrinkly that hand is. Woo. All right? It's above middle, right? Look at the length of that thumb. So just make sure you add something like that. Okay? If you turn it the other way, it might be nope. More like that. Okay. All right, another way to do it is just go like that and then taper. There's a thumb. Just to keep it real simple for now. This is simple shapes. Try thumb the other way. That looks more like a piece of corn, a corn cob. But you get the idea. You got to practice the shape. Now the next question is, how big are the hands? Well, the hands are about 3/4 of a head. Sorry, let me get that. Hands are about 3/4 of a head this way. Okay, so a head, if this is somebody's head, hands are 3/4. You can put it all right. Put your hand, the palm of your hand, on your face, and see how far up your fingers reach. It's like above your eyes. All right. So let's place the hands, and we'll talk about feet and be done. Here we go. The forearm we got to draw first in order to get the hands. Now, if you guys draw the forearm, it's about one head, right? So we're starting right about here, right above the headline. All right, so go to about here, right above this line, another joint. Now we got to draw the hand. And if you stand up for a moment.
Can you move the camera, please?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what I did is I drew this. See, the elbow is just above that line. So I'm going one head down and stopping before this line. Okay. And if you stand up for a quick moment, and you guys stand straight and put your hands on your thighs to the side. Okay. Notice how far down your hands go. They go like to the middle of your thigh. Okay. Your fingers point down to the middle of your thigh. The vast majority of people, when drawing, draw hands too small because first of all, they're hard, so they're being hesitant. But you go like this. I'm going for like from here to here. It's like one head, so I'm going to go a little less than one head. And I can draw a hand there and then a thumb. Zoom in a little bit. So the bottom of the hand, the tip of the hand is about halfway to down the leg. Go down here. Wrist joint. I know it's not really round like that, but I'm going to try this hand the other way, more of a loop. Thumbs will go more in the middle because the back of the hands are facing forward, right? About the middle. And then we want to talk about feet. Feet are really tricky to draw. There's a lot of weird contours, a lot of details, just like hands, and basically everything about human beings. Eyeballs, noses, mouths. So we'll practice all these a little bit. And then maybe later in the semester, we can go deeper into real figure drawing and portraits. Okay. But we're only learning this now. Remember, just to kind of have it in the back of our mind, begin studying this. And let's see how it affects our character drawings when we start drawing cartoons, because you can screw up a whole bunch, and that actually is how you make cool cartoons, is that totally distorted, messed up figures and faces, right? So to get the foot over here, all right, there's a few ways to draw it, but for a quick finish to this side, the right side, you could just make it a triangle. A foot is wider at the bottom, and then it kind of tapers inwards like that. So that's one way to do it. And if you wanted to put some toes, make a big toe on the inside, and then make a few little toes. Usually about 5 toes on each foot, but it's not always true. Some people have had a tough childhood. Some of those piggies went running home and away from their foot. All right, so you got a triangle, but let's analyze the foot for a moment. And I'm not limber enough to put my foot up on the screen, so we're going to just have to imagine a foot. All right, now let's look at it from the side. Okay, if a leg is coming down, let's do feet. I mean, it should be obvious. Okay, here's a leg coming down. Okay, there's like this ankle bone. And then your heel kind of goes out and hits the ground. And then there might be some arch to your foot. I'm going to draw this from the outside view. Then it comes down. There might be a toe. And then this kind of tapers the instep of your foot. There's like more of a curve. And then a toe, right? So maybe a little bigger toe. Little bump, ball of your foot, arch. Okay? So I said I was doing the outside of the foot. Now I just did the inside of the foot because I want the more you draw arch, it looks like the inside. Okay? So if we simplify that, we just go stick, joint, and then triangle. Like that. That's a side view. Okay? Profile means side. If you draw this from the front, I'll zoom in a little bit more for you. From the front, now I'm drawing pretty small here, guys. Right? The ankles kind of go like this. The inside one, I think, is a little higher. Let me make sure I got that right. Yeah, this time me. And you kind of come down, kind of goes out. Got small toe, next toe, next toe, next toe, and big toe. All right, that's a bit cartoony and distorted. Sorry, I'm off the screen. The C coming down, joint, and then a triangle. All right, if you were to draw this more 3D, you could say this is the foot is like a pyramid. Kind of gets wider out there, comes down, and then the leg might go up. It's more like a robot foot. They could put cubicle-ish type toes. Okay, but anyway, it's the simple shape that we're looking at to understand the foot. All right, and that's why on this side, I just did a simple triangle because we're looking straight at it, frontal view. And that's all you need. All right, now pulling back. If your sketchbook looks anything like this, where you have the model on the right side or left, doesn't matter which side, and noodling and doodling on the left side. All right, I got some, let's get this better. All right, I got a little space over here. The way to use this, I'll give you a quick demo and we're done, okay? The way to use this concept is to study these shapes, come up with some simple shapes that you like to use for your stick figure, and draw different poses. You can draw them like I'm gonna make somebody, here's an upper body. Let me zoom in. Take an upper body and maybe the arm goes like out here and then down, and then I got a foot, a hand. Okay, so one arm, all right? And then I got maybe a pelvis. I'll draw the pelvis like I did earlier. Like that. Okay, pelvis. And I'll make this leg going backwards a bit. And then a foot. Maybe it bends a little bit. Like that. Then this leg can come out, it's two heads. I go out, two heads, then down a little more than a head and a half, and then another foot. Draw the shape. All right, and this hand can go like up. All right, there's like one head, a joint, another hand, and a head, a hand. Okay, a neck, about a half a head, and then a head, one head. Okay, and you can make stick figures in different poses. That's where we're going with this. I could even draw a spine in there if I wanted, like a little S curve. So I just gave you guys a ton of information. That was pretty fast, I know. But it'll be on video to review. It's on slideshows. We can go over any other details, but we're going to use this information to help us draw characters, okay? Whew! All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this lesson right here. And I hope you enjoyed. Have a really good day, and don't forget to go check Google Classroom if you're missing any assignments and catch up on those. Yesterday, we turned in our color wheel, and that's all. If you haven't caught up on your website, some of you guys need to do that. I can't show you that because that's not in the sketchbook. But all right, so go ahead and stay on the line if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'm gonna